Good morning, class. Today's lesson is going to be on kites again. So we've been doing a lot of research on kites. We've been looking at different types of text, but now we're actually going to move on to your O-level progressive book 2. This book is designed to help students in the O-level exam. So all the other tasks we have been doing for the last 2 weeks, they're more just gathering some knowledge about kites. So today, because you don't have the reading passage with you, I have managed to screenshot what I would like you to read today. So you feel free to either read by yourself or you can read along with me, and you can listen for specific pronunciations. So this is a text that comes from The Kite Rider, written by Geraldine McCaughrean, which is set in China in the 13th century. So now I'm going to read you the passage, and as you are reading or listening to me, please try to identify any key vocabulary words that you don't know the meaning to and record these on your vocabulary handout. It is an exciting day for the small town where the Jade Circus is visiting, as the people have never seen a circus before. The boy, Sun Swallow, is the star of the Jade Circus. He is strapped to a kite and flown up into the clouds. The kite is guided by Sun Swallow, riding the winds, and also the ropes attached to the kite, and held by the rope men on the ground. When the circus first arrives in the town, the people are suspicious. However, when Sun Swallow is flown up into the sky, where they believe their ancestors live, their attitude changes. Sun Swallow, the circus master, called the children together and told them to run through the town, shouting at the circus had arrived. Gradually, figures emerged, wary, suspicious. They started at the acrobat with blank bewilderment, as if to say, "What are they doing? What is it for?" The conjurer was greeted with murmurs of demons. When the trick riders appeared, the audience reached for their young and made as if to take them safely home. Paragraph 2. The circus master strolled to the center of the square, signaled for the riders to withdraw, and raised his voice in an announcement. "I bring you now Sun Swallow, who rides the wind, who soars with the birds, who can travel among the spirits of your ancestors." Still, the crowd was silent. But now it was another kind of silence. Stunned, watchful, the kite with Sun Swallow strapped to it was hurried into position. Quickly, the circus hand threw Sun Swallow into the air, like a ball tossed to amuse a baby. And like a baby, the crowd was suddenly enthralled. They did not grin or break in two. Applause. Their faces were serious as they looked up. Dozens of caps fell to the ground unnoticed. The circus master breathed a sign of relief. Meanwhile, high in the sky, the turbulence around Sun Swallow was fearful. A torrent of wind flowed like the river. The lining of his stomach seemed to be screaming, and it was a long time before he realized that the noise came from the bamboo howlers. Attached to the kite, a desolate, ghostly howling which seemed to echo off the dome of the sky. It was dismissal, mournful, supernatural noises. The people on the ground heard it. They listened, heads up, hands straight, the lucky charms around their necks. They thought they were hearing the voices of their ancestors. When 200 feet above them, Sun Swallow was sick. They thought they were seeing their ancestors take on material shape and drop in among them with a splash. At the end of his flight, although he was nauseous and miserable as the rope men reeled him in, Sun Swallow saw that something odd was happening far below him. The crowd were all running towards the hill where he was to land, surging around the rope men and snatching at the rope.
Were they angry with him for being sick on their heads? They were all shouting, faces jostling as close as frog spawn, every mouth open. He struggled to separate words from the general hubbub as they pressed forward with questions about their ancestors. Did you see my mother? Did great-grandfather Sihan give you a message? Finally, the spectators caught Sun Swallow out of the air with reverent hands, convinced still further by his white face and stained clothes that he indeed been among the spirits. They pressed around him in such numbers that none of the circus hands could reach him to cut him free, and he remained spread-eagled on his back, pinned down by the hysterical crowd as they demanded more information. Did Hop Lee Young poison my chickens? Who did Chang want to inherit the business? Then the circus master's whip cracked. The people stood stock still, eyes wide silenced. If you would be answered, let Sun Swallow speak, he declared in the tones of an emperor. But Sun Swallow did not speak. Sun Swallow had nothing to say. He opened his mouth, but all that came out was, I'm sorry, What was he supposed to say? He had seen no spirits, spoken with no spirits. He looked at the circus master for help, but his frown merely urged him to say something. Anything, but what was he supposed to say? Suddenly, a high, imperious voice cut through the tense atmosphere. The spirits speak a language all of their own. The dialect of heaven is not the dialect of earth. The messenger did not speak the tongue of the spirits, but I, tongue of fire, will translate for you. It was Mai Peng, Sun Swallow's cousin, speaking from the crest of the hill, her figure a stiletto against the sky. Come here, Sun Swallow, and tell me what you heard. Sun Swallow scrambled free of the kite and up the slope to join her. Panic-stricken, he stood on tiptoe to whisper in her ear, I didn't hear anything. The ancestors of this place rejoiced in their children and their children's children. Mai Peng's voice came out so loud that the Sun Swallow almost jumped out of his wits. But there wasn't anyone there, he whispered desperately. They say that the time of the great peace is coming, but there is a danger in the river, Mai Peng continued. I was sick. Honor the gods with 1,000 lanterns and do not drink from impure waters, Mai Peng announced. And then concluded, these are the words of your ancestors, the crowd stares. They made kowtow and fell back, overwhelmed and astonished. The acrobats began their tumbling tricks. The musicians began to play. The animal handlers considered bringing the elephants up from the riverbank. But the people were not interested in thrills and marvels. They had just established contact with their ancestors, and it would take more than elephants to budge such a thought from their minds. How did you know, cousin? asked Sun Swallow as they sat later, pasting paper over the tears in the kite. Know what? No, what their ancestors wanted to say. I didn't tell you. I thought you said you weren't a medium, I thought. His cousin looked at him with her head on one side. Oh, son, because they certainly held back on your brains.